can't anymore. The applause is too much for me to handle. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to give it a minute for everybody to log in and on. We're a couple minutes late today, and I'm sure the anticipation has been building. So we'll just give it a second, and I know that our awesome producer, Maureen, is going to give me a thumbs up in the chat when we are live, everywhere that we need to be live. And in the meantime, I'm gonna hold up my wine glass because I'm the only one of the three of us drinking wine today. Dan has a cup of coffee. Dave has a Yeti.
Hydrate.
A Yeti of water.
Everybody needs to hydrate, Jenna.
Well,
we're live on. Hey, we're live on Twitter.
Woo! Okay, I see a thumbs up. Excellent. We're live. Okay, great. So now the official welcome back to another Devin Labs live stream. Today we are joined by a very special guest. Dan, I will introduce you properly with the full spiel in just one moment. First, David Garrett, my partner in wine, is joining us today. Dave is joining us from Barcelona, where apparently it is 38 degrees and all the ice in his Yeti has already melted. Poor Dave. Keeping cool.
It's true. It is very warm. Thanks, Jana. Thanks for inviting me today. I'm really excited. Just so that everybody knows, the reason that we're late is because I haven't had a chance to catch up with Dan in a long time, and we got carried away and we blew through the start time. So I apologize for that. But thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And it's great to be here with Dan today.
Amazing. Yeah, Dave, that's okay. You know, could have saved it for the live, but that's fine. We're going to get it all back. We're going to ask you all the same questions, Dan. No, I'm Jana Kryline. For those of you who don't know me, shame on you. You haven't been joining us live enough. I am your host and co-founder of Devin Labs and Club Devin. But today, I really want to appreciate Dan Petroski, who is joining us from California. Dan, you totally flipped the script on what people expect from Napa. And you kind of brought a media brain and this big startup energy with you. So Dan built Massican into the only winery in Napa and Sonoma. It's still the only Napa the only winery in Napa and Sonoma focused entirely on white wines. Is it? Is it not? Amazing. And what did you tell me before we went live about what that means for you right now?
Means that there really aren't many headwinds. We have a big white wine movement happening right now in America, and Massican's been ahead of it.
No, I mean, it's all vineyards right now, right?
Oh, yeah. The cool thing about it is, Jana asked me if I was sitting at the winery, and I said, no, I'm sitting at home, because once you harvest and make and bottle your white wine, 6 months later, you are just working in vineyards and working on the road selling wine. So I get to be in the winery for 3 or 4 to 6 months, and then I get to be out of the winery for 3 or 4 or 6 months and being out with the farmers and the sales teams.
Awesome. Okay, and you're working not on any white wines, but it's actually Mediterranean varieties, right? Like you've got Friulano and Greco and Ribolla Yala. Am I pronouncing that right?
Gialla, Ribolla Gialla.
Yeah.
Gialla, meaning yellow in Italian.
That's not real. That's not a real word.
Gialla?
One of you is making that up.
I just feel like saying YOLO. Yalla. YOLO. But that's actually, it's very it's Northern Italy varieties, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. But wait, because we're going to dive into that because I have a lot of questions about how you ended up planting those varieties and how you ended up in California in general. Because before your wine career, you were really deep into publishing at Time, right? You were doing editorial, marketing, finance.
And that is really, yeah, exactly, Jen. And that has really informed the way I approach my wine career, and the way I approach Massican is through an editorial lens. And we'll get into that a little bit when we start talking about the metaverse, the blockchain, all things NFTs, because I have a cool story about journalism on the blockchain that started back in 2018.
Okay, well, before we get into that cool story, apparently you took a life-changing trip to Italy. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, when that big, beautiful internet company AOL consumed Time Warner, my parent company. I worked for Time Magazine and Sports Illustrated. They gave us a lot of benefits like stock options and shit like that, but they took away the best benefit of all, which was the sabbatical that Time Inc. employees used to get at 15 years with under service, where you can actually go write your book if you were a journalist, go kind of recharge a little bit, so you get a full paid or half paid, depending on how long you took, sabbatical away from work. So that got taken away from a lot of us at Time Inc. at the time. So I had just returned from a vacation, seeing some business school friends in southern Italy and Sicily, and I kind of just said, screw it, I'm going to take my own personal sabbatical, and I quit my job. Decided not to go work at the Wall Street Journal, and went to live on an island, in Sicily for a year. Worked in a vineyard, and was able to travel around not all 20 winemaking regions of Italy, but enough to really want to throw myself into it head first.
Damn.
So did you live like in Taormina? Like were you in the shadow of Mount Etna?
I was in the shadow of Etna in the city of Catania, right outside of Piazza Duomo. I rented an apartment in an old palazzo that was owned by the Benanti family. Everyone knows the Benantis from Mount Etna. Drank a lot of Pietramarina during that era. It was 2005, 2006. So we're drinking some of what at the time they were considered the greatest white wines in Italy, that no one ever heard of. But then we and I would get picked up by the father or the son of the vineyard duo, who was in a cooperative called Valle della Cate, and spent time in Ragusa at the vineyard there, and did as much traveling as I possibly could. Yeah, it was a great adventure. It was truly a sabbatical. People were stunned as to why I was there. They were like, "Why are you here? You like work at Time Magazine? Why are you in Sicily?" And they call me Dottore, and then my nickname became Sindaco, because I had to tell them stories about my life. And when I was growing up in Brooklyn, my nickname was the mayor of East 2nd Street. And so they started calling me Il Sindaco, which translates to mayor in Italian.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That's
wow,
crazy.
very cool. I didn't know that part of your story, because we spent a lot of time in Sicily. We try to go every year, and we've been the last I think 3 of the last 4 years. We love Taormina.
Yeah.
We go and try to spend at least a few days there every year, and super huge fans of the wines from Etna. So I didn't know that part of your history. That's great. Do you go back?
I haven't been back in quite some time, because I kind of pigeonholed myself over my winemaking career. I started making wine in Friuli. Friuli was the Northeast was my inspiration for the start of Massacon in 2009. And so I would travel back to the Northeast, to the region of Friuli, as often as I could. And then a few years into those travels and getting to know the community up there, and making friends who became almost family like, I started making wine in Friuli as well, under the label Massacon, which I then imported into America under Massacon's distribution license. So for 5 years, I was concentrated on traveling in and out of Italy through Friuli. But at the same time, I had a day job. I was a winemaker at Larkmead. I had this small hustle called Massacon, which became a big hustle. And I was making wine 6,000 miles away. So it was really hard for me to, quote unquote, vacation in a meaningful way throughout Italy. So I ended up spending my entire time traveling mostly and to and from Italy's Northeast.
Wow. My first job offer at a winery, when I finished my sommelier studies in Toronto, and then I was like, okay, well, I want to go and get a foot in the door in the old wine world. So I was like, I got to move to Europe. And I just cold emailed all these different wineries and was like, hey, I will come and sweep your floor if you help me get a visa and just let me come and get some experience. And I actually had an offer from Yaman in Friuli. So
perfect.
Yeah. I didn't take it. I ended up in Germany, and great, amazing experience for 4 years working on the steep slopes in Franconia, actually, making Sylvaner and Scheurebe and Riesling, and yeah, great experience. But anyway, Friuli.
But those things, but like like all of that. I mean, obviously the most famous wines in America in the post World War II era were the Hock wines of Germany, and then as we kind of got into this kind of swinging 70s and 80s, and international travel started booming post Concord, Italy became really important. Then Yerman was like, I remember, I think they were like one of the first Italian wines on the cover of the Wine Spectator, in the 80s. And it was, they became the staple for, white wines, along with Gavi and Soave. They became the Pinot Grigio staple in restaurants and, red sauce
In North
table joint
America.
restaurants in New York and North America. Yeah.
Totally. When I worked in Toronto, it was like everybody was drinking it. I mean, it was, it's, I think still today. So yeah, they did a good job. Anyway, so, okay. You launched Massacon. Am I saying it right? Massacon?
Yeah, Massacon, yeah.
Here we go, everybody. I've got my wine. I want the wine. I got the wine opener, but before we went live, we were asking where we can get Dan's wine in Europe, and we will see.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. TBD. Okay, so you launched Massacon in 2009?
Yes.
Okay. And this is like a cult followed label at this point, right? But at the same time, you kind of were pushing into the tech side too. So what kind of lit that fire and got you into, NFTs and blockchain?
The entire, as I mentioned earlier, coming from a publishing background, the whole goal with Massacon was to editorialize this brand. It was completely virtual. We didn't own a winery. We didn't own a vineyard. We rented space in another winemaking facility. We worked with 20 different farmers, or today I work with 20 different farmers. So we were really kind of like, telling other people's stories amongst my own story, which is this romanticized, nostalgic idea of what Massacon used to be, or what Massacon is to me. And it just, I always wanted to kind of take things one step further and build a brand horizontally and make it something where, you can drink, Massacon water or coffee or tea, experience Massacon through the Massacon cookbook. So an editorialized version of that, have a magazine around it so that you can drink a glass of wine while reading. And during the by 2016, 2017, 2018, Massacon really started to gain a lot of traction. And it was also during this period of this thing called, this era of fake news that was being perpetrated across the media. And me being a former media executive, I wanted to just support the idea that journalism is, it's an art and it's a science and it's a necessity. And so I started looking at ways to kind of track back facts and truth. And the blockchain is that. It's a ledger of consistent, hopefully consistency. And obviously there are going to be other people using it in different ways, but it's a ledger to, to track all the facts and figures and to be able to have a data resource against every piece of content. And I started thinking about that in the wine world because it was really important from a vineyard perspective, and we can get into that in a minute. But it really, my journey started with, investing in a couple of young journalists who wanted to publish on the blockchain and use the blockchain as a means to for fact checking. And so that was really back in 2018, and this was coming a couple of years after, or at the same time, CryptoKitties was started. And CryptoKitties started to show you that there is this biblical ledger from 2 cats to 21 million over the course of 6 or 7 years. And it proved that you can actually, kind of track back things to the Bible, to the Adam and Eve story. And I think that's the same thing with any story that we want to tell, right? We used to live through language storytelling, then we lived through written storytelling. Now now it's mostly digital storytelling. And I think the digital storytelling for us, and not only for journalism, but also for product, is really truly, the resource that we've all needed in our lives, that we don't know we need, that actually gives us, integrity of product. And words are product. So that to me was a big part of what I was trying to do with Massacon. But the switch really flipped obviously during this era of, channel, we called it the Wild West, and during the pandemic where NFTs went, just bonkers, and everyone saw this technology and used it, what they were trying to use it to create communities, which is true, but they were creating communities on top of something that was more powerful. And what I tried to do was my love of my love of art, my love of words, my love of wine, and it all comes together. The one thing I did was I created. I was shocked that the wine industry always gets a knock for not being like Amazon. You order a bottle of wine on our website, it takes like 5 to 7 days to get to you. It's expensive to ship. It's heavy. In the summertime, it's 38 degrees in Spain. No one's shipping a bottle of wine to David's house, or it's going to just like explode and cook in the packaging. So I said, we have this really antiquated model. Let me give you something first, because you're giving me money for something in advance. I remember when we were kids, we used to order something, like, used to be COD. So like it used to show up in your house, and you like would then give a check over after the
Right.
fact. Now credit cards change that whole model, right? And so today people are paying me for something that they might not receive for months on end. And I said, that's not fair. We need to give back. So I built an entire NFT network within the Masakan universe. Whereas if you ordered a bottle of wine, I immediately sent you a link and said, thank you. I've given you a digital collectible of an artist. It's actually Amba Vittoria right here. She created digital labels. She created artwork for Masakan that were digital labels that if you had a crypto wallet and you were crypto forward, you could download her digital artwork as an NFT that were associated with the wines you purchased. So I was giving you something for your money immediately. And it was all built into the infrastructure of the Masakan e-commerce platform. And that to me was the coolest thing I've ever done in the wine industry. But I only like 8 or 10 other people felt the same way. so it was like, fuck, man. I know this thing. I just think it's, and I know we're all in this together, but I think we're just a couple of years ahead of our time right now. But it was just really, it was about utility. It was about provenance. It was about storytelling and facts and basis and data. I mean, right now, the data I'm collecting on Masakan and using AI, I want to push that all to the blockchain, with all my history of all my vineyards, and just have this out there open to the public, because everyone should have that transparency. If you take something as intimate as wine and put it in your body, you should have the knowledge of where that came from, and you should be available to you, and not just on my website. It should be available for everyone to be able to kind of fact check it. And that, I think, is the most important thing that we can convince the world why the blockchain and this ledger is going to be the most important thing in our lives. And maybe it's not this generation. I think the NFT community set us back a little bit, maybe 5 years, 10 years, maybe a generation. Everyone loved the community building, but I think it went a little too far. And I think it got a little too much media coverage and hype. But and look, I made a bunch of money on it early on, which I'm not embarrassed to say I did. But I think it's gonna add for a really amazing experience in the years to come for people if they want it. It'll be there for them. They may not access it, but the people who do access it will have an amazing kind of like, say, this is legit shit. It's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You just touched on so many things that I think we could dive into, but one of the things that I think resonated with me the most is like the community side of it, right? Because you said there might have only been 8 other people who like felt the same way about it. So this whole thing with digital art and digital collectibles, and then you can back all of that up with the transparency and everything that goes with wanting to be able to track your wine from grape to glass. We always say, but the community side of it is like, I always kind of feel like with Club Divin and Divin Labs, I kind of always feel like we have to speak 2 different languages. So like on crypto Twitter, we're kind of talking to the degens, and it's such a different thing than when you're talking to like a lot of the club members who are like serious wine collectors, and they want to know like when is the next drop coming out, because they want like the hottest old library release or something. So how do you find that intersection is for you at Masakan? Like, do you have that really, like, I want to say Web3 native collector base or community?
Not really. And maybe this is my own kind of old white guy, kind of flaws where I'm like, I can't figure this out. But honestly, when I started Masakan 15, 16 years ago, it was I wanted people to look like me, but I didn't realize I wanted them to look like me psychographically, which was like which was with wine consumers and wine collectors. The number one word for that is curiosity. You're so
Yeah.
curious about how these wines are made. You're so curious about the families that make them. You're so curious about the place in which they sit in the world of wine and the pantheon. That's what I really wanted, but I ended up getting a lot of guys that looked like me demographically, which meaning 45, at the time 35 to 40, now it's 45 to 50 years of age, and that community is just now getting into wine, but they're getting into wine at a different segment of interaction than the car like the than I did 15 years ago. It was very limited to what we could access from content, from education. There's very limited about what the diversity of wine availability was. Now there's so much access to everything that I think it's become overwhelming, and it's actually the wine industry has lost its footing with being able to connect with people because we haven't figured out how to communicate. So then we're asked and we're told that we have to meet this new generation, the degens, the crypto forward, all this younger generation of consumer in a way, and like we don't even know how to talk to them, let alone we're losing footing with our own base.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're trying to figure out how to get to another. And it just goes back to this. I've been saying this forever. It's like that theory of 1,000 true fans. It's like it's not even 1,000 true fans. It's 10 groups of 100. Now
Yeah.
you have to, as a marketer, you have to speak to 10 different people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think AI is really good at helping us to say, this is how you speak to John's generation. This is how you speak to Dave's generation. You speak to Dan's generation. But then is that truly authentic to a small brand like Masakan that is, that it was founder driven? And so now you have to say to yourself, holy shit, like, how do we do this in a meaningful way? So the long answer to your question is it's been really hard to just say, I'm going to drop everything and I'm going to go, kind of digital forward and try to speak to a generation who cares only about digital. And everyone's listening to all the research and saying, oh my God, Gen Z, 45% of Gen Z first search query is through social. But that doesn't mean I create a social campaign and I'm going to win that community. It's a lot harder than that. And I think no one's figured it out yet. At least in the wine space. I'm not saying other brands haven't, other industries haven't.
I think you're starting to see some people sort of at least find limited success. I mean, maybe no one has figured out the whole thing, but I do think that you know um, the the next generation, just like the previous generation, are interested in experiences. They just have different expectations, right? I actually think that honestly, I think that they all want the same thing. They just want it delivered in a different way, and their expectations are set in a different way. But I think everybody wants stories. I think everyone wants to be part of a group, right? They want to be part of like a small group. Everybody wants experiences. And like they might be slightly different. They might be targeted a little bit differently, but I think that's what everybody wants. And the nice thing about blockchain is you know because you have the ledger, because you have the ability to create those authentic proofs, it really does, like, an authentic proof. What we say, we call a tasting token, right, is an authentic proof of experience. Like, having that really puts you in a club. And like, yeah, maybe there's too much Web3 wallet, 0x whatever stuff that we need to get around, like that we need to kind of figure out UX. But I think that idea of being part of a club, being part of a small group of people um that that are that have like a common interest and common knowledge, and have like Like if I spot someone with a Massican corkscrew across the room, I'm like, I know that guy. Like we have something in common, right? And
Yeah.
I think people are looking for that connectivity, and I think wine. I believe that wine can bring people together. So
Yeah.
Look, my vision is exactly what you're talking about, David. I years ago I wanted to create. Whenever I saw a heat map of where my Masakan customers lived, or where my Masakan wines are poured in restaurants or retail in America, I always like get giddy because I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of places. It's like wow. And now I was always interested in, I get like 3 or 4 questions about Masakan that are consistent. I'm the person who answers the emails for 15 years on the website, and people are like, when should you drink Masakan? Where can I find Masakan? And what should I pair with it? Right? 3 basic questions. And having this this kind of like this, just say we started with this biblical ledger, and I planted a grapevine, and that grapevine, and it was recorded over time, and then everything that happened to that grapevine, and then it was made grapes into wine, and then it was bottled, and then you purchased it, and now you actually, with this authentic token of consumption, you now get on that line. You're adjacent to the line, you're running parallel with the line, but you're now connected at a point in time with that line. And that line continues to move over time. And now you can see all the other people build through that line. And as they build through that line, they've built this community of people who were fans or fans of wine, followers of Masakan, drinkers of Masakan. And I think that that is amazing. Now, if you start to see all of these lines with this trajectory, and then like you run into someone who maybe drank the wine 10 years ago because they were on the line, and you notice them through this kind of like, again, it has to come down to this user experience, user interface. That's the one thing crypto has not done well yet, or blockchain has not done well yet. And AI is having the same problem. They haven't really done user interface well yet, but that's
yeah.
now coming, right? And that to me is just like, that's the goal, man. It's to like, plant a vine, and then 20 years from now, look at all the people who drank the wine from that vine, and being able to record that. That's just amazing shit.
Yeah.
That is necessary. But think about other industries. Think about like automotive with the 6,000 pieces that go into a car engine or whatever. It's like, think about being able to put every one of those pieces on a single line.
Yeah.
It just seems right. It seems like we should have been doing this a long time ago.
100%.
What does Dave always say? It's like, if you wanted to do what we're talking about right now, you would have had to invent the blockchain to do it. So it's like just at the beginning. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. And then it's like wine anyway. Whenever you're really talking about wine, you're talking about like the next generation. Like you're planting the vine, and we're talking about years and years in between all of these things. It's really long-term building. So, and we're pioneering here.
I go back to CryptoKitties. In 7 years, they created a community that's 8% the size of America in 7 years.
What?
21 million cats, right? It's 8% the size of America in 7 years, and they know where every one of them lives. And granted, look, I know there's a whole privacy thing here that we have to deal with, but that's just amazing to me. It seems more beneficial than it does detrimental, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, look,
you can shoot me up on social media. Go for it. I don't care.
People have used every new technology gets used for, like, people find a way to exploit it. I remember in like 1996, I was at my folks' house, and I was showing them how to buy something online, and I was like, so you put in your credit card, and my dad looked at me like I was insane, and he was like, what are you talking about? Your credit card on the internet? Are you nuts? And that wasn't that long ago, right? Like, we're still in that stage right now. We're still in that stage, and that's okay. Like, that stuff is going to get figured out, and because the benefits so far outweigh the negatives. But I'm going to tell you a fun story. You said heat maps and pairings, and that reminded me that when I saw you last, which was, I don't know, a little over a year ago, I took home 6 bottles of Mascan here to Spain, and I just opened the most recent bottle about a month ago, maybe. And I took it to a friend of mine who makes paella, and she was having a big paella party, and everyone was supposed to bring like a cool bottle of wine. And I brought the Anilla. It's Anilla, right? Am I pronouncing
Yeah.
that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
So I brought my last bottle of the Anilla, and like I think it was a room full of 12 people, so everyone got like a tiny pour, and everyone went nuts. So I'm going to tell you, when people ask you what to pair the Anilla with, tell them it's
Paella.
seafood paella for sure. For
Perfect.
sure. Yeah. And by the way,
I love
I
it.
need to get some more. I need to figure out a way to get some more here to Spain.
We need the heat map for European distribution is coming soon.
Yes. Yeah, I'm in Germany. So come on. Spain and Germany, first on the list, Dan.
Yep. But
Yeah.
no, but seriously, guys, this is the work you've done in the last 5 years has been incredible. And even though sometimes it feels like we're pushing boulders up hills, I think a lot of other people are trying to accomplish the same that you are. And it's just, we as a community, it's going to all happen without anyone knowing, right? It's going to be the largest revolution with the weakest, kind of explosion, and it's going to change people's lives when they actually see it happening naturally in the background. And I think that's what we have to look forward to. I think this is the next generation of post AI. This is going to be the same thing, because right now we don't have enough compute to remember all our conversations in social media, or excuse me, in AI. And I think the blockchain can fix that, and they haven't connected the two yet as a utility. And that's something that we need to get the folks at Ethereum talking to Sam Altman, I think. But maybe it's beyond my technical prowess to say that out loud.
We're already doing a bit of that, Dan. I need to send you an invite to the beta user group for Bacchus. So we've been working on it for over a year now, and I actually, before we got on, I asked Bacchus about Massican and about you, and
So did I.
I'll send you I'll send you what it said. But like, we in about a month I'm going to send you the beta user, but in a month we'll launch to the public. It's insane. And like, being able to access, right now it's just accessing certainly everything that we have on chain, but then obviously all of the public information. As soon as there's more, like, the more information that goes on chain, the better Bacchus is going to be at everything from, I mean, right now it's sort of sort of optimized for wine investment, but over time it can be optimized for, for experiences. It can be optimized for club. It can be optimized for community. Like, there's lots of stuff that you can do with it, as these you know tasting tokens or authentic proof of experience. As you start being able to see where your bottles are in the world, as you start seeing where bottles are being opened, as you start seeing where
Business content, but it's user generated content that might not be accurate all the time, or they might pull an old image. Whereas if you can API to a chain that has all the information you need, then I don't have to. I'm happy to pay for that ticket between Vivino and the blockchain, as opposed to me having to pay Vivino a publisher fee and then go on and update all my information again, where they can just kind of pull the correct information one place. And the team that tried to do this was Wine Folly and Madeline Puckett, and with her global wine database, and she was creating her global maps by region, and she was asking everyone to use a simple online form. So it started, but it's not advancing as rapidly as it could or should be, because I will tell you this: I work with farmers, and farmers don't necessarily keep records in the way that we want them to keep records. And then when they're told that they need to share information or aggregate information, it's very difficult for them, especially when I work in a where I work for the sustainability organization as a board member. We want farmers to put their get their certifications, and they have to do all this work in the background. And like, we don't have the bandwidth to do more data entry, so we're just going to farm properly and not worry about the certification. And like,
but that's the thing is
problem.
AI can solve a lot of that problems, like
AI
and robotics, and we'll be able to solve a lot of, like, nobody should be doing data entry anymore, honestly. Like, it's you don't really need to do it, and we just need to figure out those solutions. But I think you're 100% right. Have you guys used have you used Elwyn at all? Is Massican on Elwyn?
No.
Ping me after, and we'll make sure that Massican gets on the Elwyn database. The robots that are listening to this will remember. But yeah, we'll get you on Elwyn, because you really should be. That's kind of the European version of what Madeline's trying to do.
Got it. Well, what I'm doing right now is I built using, again, it's AI, and I think AI is eventually going to have this a major influence on the chain. Is basically putting in all this historical vineyard data. So I'm going to get off this call. I have to drive to 2 Sauvignon Blanc vineyards. Sauvignon Blanc harvest is going to start in about 30 days or less. And I am going to talk to my car. I'm going to talk to my ChatGPT, and I'm going to be like, okay, I'm driving to, Fisher Vineyard. Tell me the history of Massican and Fisher Vineyard. When is veraison? When did we harvest? What are the sugar accumulations? Tell me about what year this looks like from a growing degree perspective, from a historical reference. And then I can have this conversation in the car. But all this data is going to eventually live on the chain. And then going back to the robots, David, I am, having to once the data is in there, have the data updated. It's either going to be, I'm going to create an app for the ease of updating, so I don't have to update a spreadsheet, or I can just do it audibly when I'm in the car and be like, okay, I just came from Fisher Vineyard. We're at veraison. Highlight, mark this date, so then I can on. Powerful now is working with everywhere, which is outside of Lodi County, Sonoma, Napa. I'm in the car 6 or 7 hours a day during peak season, and I don't have enough podcasts to listen to. So I just get bored. Now I got bored. I talked to my friend about the vineyards. But it's like I always say it's like talking to a librarian who's read every book in the library. It's like, that's a cool fun conversation. And and I think this, a lot of my peers that work in vineyard management, they're in their trucks all day long, and they're accessing data on their phone, and they don't have great reception, and they're waiting to get back to the office and look at spreadsheets. This will save an hour at night for me when I get home, having to go into my spreadsheets and kind of trying to categorize the data for myself based on what I'm seeing in the field every day. And that, I think, is again, this is an opportunity to get all this data publicly available on the chain so that people can access it as well. Again, you put something intimately within your body, you should know more about it, right? We should have all the calorie counts and nutrition and ingredients 100%. You put something on your skin, you should know everything about it. Like, anything that you consume as a human that's made by someone else, you should have the freedom to know everything about that product that you choose to 100% consume.
See,
and I think this is an easy way to do this.
You went from speaking degen to crypto Twitter, and now you're speaking to the generations under me. They want to know everything about everything that they eat and touch. And see, I think we're hitting all the generations with this one.
And it's like, think of the food industry had celebrity chefs in the late 90s. The wine industry had celebrity sommeliers in the 2010s. Now we're going into this era in the 2020s where it's okay. People want to know more about what they're eating, what they're drinking. They want to know about the human authentic resources behind it, but they also want to know the tools in which they use to present to you something. And I think things are going to move very fast in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well,
part of me is scared and part of me is excited.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna
Look,
be
I've said it, David, you know this, John. I don't know if you've heard this, but I'd sell my soul to a fucking algorithm. I want my life so much more. Like when you are a solo entrepreneur or you're a busy professional, um, agency and utility is like the number one thing that could be used. I mean, I don't know. If anyone on this chat hasn't subscribed to the Sociology of Business Substack, I mean, it's the best kind of a breakdown of business and brand and trends and whatever. And I literally, I get into my Gmail. It has a folder unto itself. Whenever I have a business question, I just go to Gemini and I'm like, hey, could you go through the SOB, I call it the Sociology of Business newsletter folder, and then give me the answer to this question based on everything you've read. And it's like, I don't know. That type of agency in my life is the most important thing that I need. And I think we all do, and it gives me more free time to kind of enjoy a glass of wine with people around me.
That's what it's all about. That's what we're talking about. Being able to actually enjoy the wines.
Yeah.
Just we've always when we launched Club Divan, I think it took us about 2 weeks, Dave, to realize that we kind of needed to abstract all the blockchain and NFT talk out and just we're a wine
and focus on the wine.
Yeah. So that's really what it is all about in the end. Enjoyments and getting together and sharing those bottles and sharing tasting tokens. So we get those heat maps.
Exactly.
Speaking of which,
hey, look,
I feel like I need a glass of wine now.
You go get a glass of wine. Dan's got to go check out the vineyards.
You see some vineyards. Yep.
I gotta go to the gym. I just had a glass of wine. This is the perfect pre-workout assignment here. Yeah.
To be 29 again.
Yeah, I wish. All right. This has been awesome, Dan. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dave, for jumping on. You go get a glass of wine. Dan, go take care of your vineyards. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Dan. All right. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao.